Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee with American Scouser or tea. I have the coffee right here. It's the Polish Prince Monday, so we have Mateusz with us. Tea, coffee. Since you're getting sick by the sound of it, you probably should be getting some tea, buddy.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't have enough time to make tea, so I just microwaved some water.
Close enough, close enough. Just missing a few leaves. That's basically.
Yeah, so I don't know why I just expressed that over the internet, but it's fine. It's Monday.
Nothing like a cup of warm water in the morning. It is Monday, buddy. Good morning. Happy Monday, says Al. Yes, happy Monday it is. I don't know about that. I got the Monday grumpy going. By the way, I mean it's just random, but when it lines up on Mondays, it's dead on. So almost done with this international mess, and God knows I'm freaking glad because it has been a horrific experience watching Turkey. It's one of those where like they don't want to be there. Their games had no meaning, whereas you, as the Polish Prince, obviously support Poland. They had a crucial game yesterday, but sounds like you were not all that into it.
No, I was. What was I doing yesterday? I was celebrating my mom's birthday at a restaurant. So that was during the same time the game was going on. So I got I saw the stats and I caught the highlights, but other than that, I wasn't really that into it. I don't know. There's something about the Nations League. It just doesn't do it for me. And I think I'm just going to be disappointed by Poland in December anyway, or November, December. So I'm just not all into them right now at all, to be honest.
Alan says, does the Polish Prince know who Rula Lanska is?
No, it doesn't sound Polish, to be honest.
I don't know what it is, but it's not.
But I've got the internet.
Yeah, it is a British actress. So I don't understand where this comes from. So I'm sure Alan there's a method to his madness usually in the morning. So we'll probably eventually find out what the connection is. But not a lot of news. In some ways, some good news, I guess, Mateusz, right? I mean, we got a lot of guys not like, even if they went to the national teams, they're not doing a whole lot. Trent is one of them. Hando is another name. Mo, you see in the headline, got kind of like sent back. They were like, you go relax. Even Egypt is like, these games suck. They don't matter. Why don't you go get some rest?
So you know it's serious.
I think overall it's been, I know like obviously Robertson has not played, and even like against Brighton, we don't know if we're going to have him or not. It could be Costas going out there again, who's playing today, we said, or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, so he's playing tomorrow. He's the only one I think that's consistently playing. Van Dijk played, I think both games actually full, scored a goal yesterday. So at least he's done though. From what I know, I mean, these games are finally done, I hope, because somebody put me out of my misery. She's actually a well-known princess from Poland. You would think the Polish prince would know the Polish
princess. So,
so how much of these international games do you follow? And is this pretty much really good news that none of our guys mostly played? I know Nunez played. I don't know if they play again soon. I didn't catch it. I've been, like I say, apart from Turkey's torturous games, I have not followed it as much. But how much do you follow it? Is it a good thing that these guys are kind of there but not playing? I guess Uruguay plays Canada tomorrow.
I mean, I don't know how to feel about it. I feel like as fans, we're going to feel a lot differently about it than the players do, because the players, they want to represent their countries. And that's just how it's always been. As fans, we're not always excited about it. But you ask any player to represent their country, and they're going to do it 100% of the time. There's just something different about being able to wear your country's colors and playing for them. And I think overall, seeing as how this break has gone just for our guys, at least I feel like this has been probably a little bit of a blessing, considering the added break from the 2 postponed games as well. So I think overall it's going to work in our favor, but it's just not something that I'm really paying attention to. If it's something like today where I might have some time during the afternoon and I want to just throw something on, I might put it on just for the sake of it. But it's not anything that I've been really actively paying attention to.
And is that because it's this like Nations League thing that's like weird? It's kind of like glorified friendlies, or just kind of like in
Yeah,
the World Cup waiting mode for you at least?
yeah, it's almost it's the friendly part of it because especially if the World Cup wasn't later this year, then perhaps I would be a little more excited about watching some of the Nations League. But I think when we have that to look forward to, these just feel like glorified friendlies because it doesn't really matter, right? No one's going to be singing that they're Nations League's champions, right? It just I don't know.
I know like there is a way to this will be what for like Euros, I think, right? It's like to kind of qualify. If you do this and if that guy ties and you jump on top of this and he wins and stuff like that, you end up qualifying for it. I think more for maybe not for the big boys, like Alan's mentioning about France, Spain, England, Germany, all playing poorly. And it's a lot of, like I mean, I felt the same thing with Turkey just because I think they were guaranteed already. It's a bunch of players that are like too cool for school. They really didn't want to be there. That's why I thought, a good opportunity to play mostly like, like debuts and stuff like that because somebody who's going to be excited there. So funny you mentioned that because this was one of the highlights this morning that every player wants to, play for their national team. I know this is a like the money part of it brings a lot of issues and a lot of politics into the game in terms of I don't know if it's the same in Poland, but I know definitely in Turkey and a lot of other places. I know it's notorious, like in like Nigeria and like Cameroon and stuff like that, where who gets selected to the national team is very, very political, and it affects it because they get money as well. Is it kind of similar in Poland, where it becomes like a political issue?
I don't know if it's quite to that extent. I do see where you're coming from, because when it comes down to it, it's almost like you think back to like high school popularity or the high school contests. It just pretty much becomes a popularity contest, and you want those famous people, those most sociable people, the most those people that others recognize the most. That's who they want there. And I feel like that's kind of the sense that you get from some of these nations. You just need the faces for it more than anything. And I don't necessarily think Poland is that way because there's been some years where they've brought in some guys on the squad that have made absolutely no sense in the terms of they haven't been around the team at all. They're just kind of surprise picks, and they were picked because they were playing well and not because of who they were. And so I know right now there's like four guys from the MLS that are on the Poland team right now, and that's something that would have been unheard of 10 years ago. So I mean, with the MLS growing in its where with its players, that I think that helps too. But yeah, I don't think Poland quite has that sort of political problem when it comes to picking their squads.
Because this brings me to the next question over here, where players getting paid, to be honest, I'm kind of a little torn on this. I'm kind of like on the sitting on the fence, looking at both sides, don't know which side to jump on. Where they're gonna get 400,000, well, I guess like $39,000 to win the World Cup. But apart from like winning the World Cup, there's always bonuses for wins and stuff like that. So if these guys really want to play for their national teams, should there be, I mean, I know it's like going to sound like an old man, but taxpayer money allocated to give bonuses for guys elected to have the honor of playing for their national teams, for them to play good and win, like an incentive for them to good and win. Where do you stand on that?
It's tough because when you compare that to something like the Olympic athletes don't get paid either, right? I mean, it's one of those things where you, especially in their case, you train all your life to represent your country in the specific sport, and then if you only do it once and you lose, you kind of just trained all that time and did all that for nothing because you don't get any money, you don't get anything for it. So in this case, I think because they all represent teams at a club level and get paid from the club, and they continue to get paid throughout these breaks, right? It's not like payment stops at this week and then continues again at this week. They're still getting continuously paid through their club. So while I don't think it's necessarily a terrible idea for a bonus incentive if you win the whole thing. Maybe the cup itself can organize a way to get some sort of fund allocated for the winners that can get split amongst the team, rather than having to rely on the people of that country to, essentially the taxpayer money in a way. Um, I think so. That's where I stand on it. I don't think they should be paid every game, because they're already getting paid from their club. So I think that's kind of, I'm leaning towards the no, but I can see some arguments with
Because I
yes.
think normally, basically, all the award money goes to the federation, like the soccer federation, whatever you have, like the federate, like the soccer authority in your country is what who gets the money. But in some ways, I mean, I don't know. Let's stick with Poland, for example. I mean, if they get that money, and do you want it to go into Lewandowski, who's already making a bazillion dollars, or you want that federation to actually invest that money in lower leagues and stuff like that, where the money is probably needed more, and clubs and players who need it more. I'm kind of torn on that because I know at the same time these guys are leaving an extremely high paying job to go there and represent their country, risking injury. Because then, while like you're saying, their weekly paychecks are getting there, an injury over there and the national team can really affect it. I mean, normally this shit wouldn't happen in the middle of freaking winter, but like you go to a World Cup in June, if you're, your contract is up and you're kind of like a free agent, if you will, and you can sign with any club, and you get injured in June in the World Cup, that's a lot of money you're losing. So I can kind
Yeah.
of understand that, but I know something irks me when we say, "Hey, these guys will do anything to represent their countries," and I mean, in most cases, especially in most countries, these guys are going from top leagues. They already have like ridiculous contracts. They don't, they're not calling somebody up. If you were that good to be in your national team, you're probably not playing for pennies somewhere, unless
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know, like Faroe Islands or something like that, or like Liechtenstein or something like that. But I think that's where I'm torn with that. And yeah, I don't even know there's an answer. So I got to throw that to the boys tonight at the podcast too. So Gally can rant on that for like 10 minutes probably. But especially if on the US team is going to be mentioned. Um, for Liverpool, I didn't see the headline this morning, but I've seen it all over Facebook about this whole, I don't know. I think it's a lot of like this BS news reporting, but it's Firmino for Depay swap with Barcelona. What do you make of that? Does it even make sense?
It doesn't even make sense. I mean, what's the advantage there for Liverpool, right? I mean, a little bit of you you can't say forward depth because you're replacing a forward with someone up top. With, I mean, I guess the pie you can play him on the wing, right? But the wing depth isn't necessarily what's going on. The forward depth isn't necessarily what's the problem. It's the midfield depth right now. Overall, you could argue, some could argue that midfield depth, if everyone is healthy, isn't terrible. But right now, it's the midfield depth that's in trouble and not the forward depth. So it just seems like a lateral move that doesn't necessarily benefit. It might not hurt a ton, but it just doesn't benefit a lot. It just doesn't really make sense.
Is it? I mean, the only thing I can see that we would get out of this is get slightly younger and get something for Bobby instead of like losing him out. Like we did with players in the past. Unfortunately, quite a few of them where we get nothing in return. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I love the pie. I know, like Megan in our Discord channel, I'm sure, like was extremely excited. But of course, then it also includes losing Bobby, which I guess is going to happen at one point. I was very torn about the whole Juventus thing when he was, like rumored to go to Juventus, but that was more. I felt like there was no replacement for him. Whereas now it feels like it's like you're saying, it's a rare area. We kind of have depth in. So it's not as bad to get younger and to get something for him. But what will be in it for Barcelona?
It's a great question. Besides maybe another name to sell jerseys from, it's one of those things where sometimes you get the exciting new player that you bring in just for the fans, to bring in for the bit of excitement to get some extra kit sales from. Because I don't necessarily think I don't watch Barcelona too often to say whether or not I think he would fit in their system. But with Lewandowski there, I can't imagine that they play completely differently, those two, and
Yeah.
those two would be sharing the same position. So right, so I don't like. Do you change your entire system depending on which one of those is up top? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that actually. Yeah, Lewandowski is over there, so why would they get another like center forwards? Like, and it's not even like okay, we have Lewandowski, let's get a younger guy behind him or something like that. You're getting another older guy behind him, but this is
Yeah,
Barcelona. I guess in some ways you don't expect it to make too much sense. But at the same time, you would think Coutinho would be like, bro, don't. And you know those guys are like still tight, so you would think Coutinho would advise against it. This is comical and sadly not shocking. By the way, I just see this earlier that Watford sacked their manager again. If you could only have $1 for every time that happens. So in tank, well, I think like the mandate was to support or come hell or high water. I think anytime a club says we're totally behind our manager, like if I was the manager, I would order some boxes and get going because that's usually the kiss of death, and that only means you're 2 to 3 weeks away. They have started their search. They might as well say so. Um, and Slaven Bilic is coming back, which he has sunk low, right? To like the championship teams. He used to like be in Turkey going around, and obviously he did a bunch of stints in the Premier League. I think he's a good manager overall, but he's one of those guys that his message gets old pretty darn fast. So
yeah,
he's the guy that makes an impact, and it just goes downhill like a season later. The
yep,
sound gets old.
yeah. He'll do well enough to get them back up, and then 6 games into the Premier League, not work at all.
Yes, because I think like over summer they'll argue that he wanted these guys and they didn't get him and stuff like that, and that will go like down south. So hopefully, at least a couple like after today and tomorrow, I think are the national games, and we're back to our boys. I thank God because, like I say, watching Turkey was so painful, man. It's not even funny. But so you think this basically has helped us, this gap right here? Are you looking forward to Saturday? Because here's the thing, normally we come out like crap out of these international breaks, and this was a pretty long one. So what is your like expectation level for the team that's going to face Brighton?
Yeah, I don't know if there could be a better team to be playing right now than Brighton, given their situation with Potter, um, or the lack of Potter now, I should say. And I know they just they hired a new manager, so I don't know where they're at as a club altogether, how they're feeling, and I don't know if they're as together as they were before, for lack of a better explanation. So I feel like in terms of that, I don't know if I'm expecting them to come. I'm expecting Liverpool to come out really well because, like you said, every time there's an international break, the guys come back and it's not great. But this time is a little different because I feel like not as many guys played as much. So there's that part to it as well. So maybe that I feel like if there's any moment to really start turning this season around, it would have to be this moment. Um, Otherwise, you're going to wait till wait until they play Forest, and at that point, it might be too late to turn the season around. We said that last year in January that it was too late, and they were still able to make a push for it. So maybe it's all we don't really know what's ever going to happen. So, but I think this is a crucial game to kind of get things going, just for the sake of morale going into the last 7-8 matches before the World Cup, because then as long as you end on a high in these last 8 match weeks, then going into the World Cup and coming back is going to feel so much easier and so much better than if you go in these last 7-8 match weeks on a lull.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. I think that's what makes this season a little bit unique. This October is kind of crucial for everybody out there because you get a good October in, and especially us, and really any club who's in the Champions League has a rough October in terms of like the number of games they're going to play. If you're in Europe, it's a really, really tough schedule. But I think it could be season defining where if you have a good run, I mean, even if you don't win every game, but if you have a good positive run, that's the way you're gonna go into the World Cup thing, and you're gonna have to build on. Otherwise, it's freaking 2 months of question marks. Or well, how long is this tournament?
So a month and a half.
2 weeks? Is it? Yeah. So it's a long time of question marks and transfer rumors and all that kind of stuff for media to start shit. I think especially for a team like us, I think it is crucial to get a good start to October, get some good results, and hopefully better performances. I think it's going to help having obviously Thiago back. Hando, I'm hoping he should be back for the weekend. I don't know if maybe he won't be risked for the weekend and they'll use him against the Rangers game. But it's good to kind of have those guys back. Not as many miles in the legs, miles in terms of flying, but not as much like running, I guess, in most cases. And I think the people who got games in are guys that you kind of want getting games in, like Nunez and Costas and stuff like that, especially if Costas is going to come back and play with like Robertson's situation. So I think, the guys who are getting minutes are the guy that you want kind of getting minutes to be able to get into the flow and kind of like get their confidence back and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see. I am slightly worried, but I'm always freaking worried. So that doesn't say anything. Ellen's asking, I kind of like save this for last over here, the WSL Merseyside Derby. Obviously, Liverpool loses to Everton 3-0. Did you catch it? I was able to watch the first half, and then I had to surrender to the torture of the Turkish national team because, we do a pod for that one. So it was just kind of like I had to watch it live. I went back and watched the highlights. It's definitely a different watch because you're watching a team. I think you have to watch it with a little bit lower expectations, knowing you're watching a team that just got promoted as opposed to, watching the men's team who's going on a title run.
Right, because we talked about it last week, right? When they beat Chelsea, we were trying to let people know that this is similar to Bournemouth beating City, right? And so, yes, that can happen the first week, but then like Bournemouth beating Villa first week, and then you kind of see what happened to them the next several weeks after that. They kind of got grounded back to reality. And so that's sort of, I think, where a lot of fans were kind of slapped back into the common sense of, yes, this is a team that is still going to struggle throughout the year. You can't expect this team to get promoted and then go on and challenge for the title right away. So I think I didn't catch the match. I caught some highlights. I feel like I just didn't do anything sports related yesterday. It was almost
sounds like it.
Weirdly,
a lot of birthday cake eating.
Weirdly, want to say it was healthy for my brain and my life, but I don't know. Maybe not, because that's why I felt sick waking up, because maybe I didn't have enough sports yesterday. So, yeah, I think overall we kind of saw where this team is going to be competing level wise for the year, and it's not going to be an easy year by any means.
And I think that's why the 3 points last week was really key, because this is going to be a season where you're just trying to establish yourself and not have a relegation battle or anything like that. Flow around in the middle, kind of have some building pieces, and hopefully add some important pieces. Let's see if that investment is going to be made then. But it's almost like I feel like the team is going to have to earn that investment with their play throughout the season, so there's gets more added. But yeah, I mean, you could tell. I mean, I know we had a few players out, but watching the game, you could tell there was like a gap overall in overall talents. There were areas where we needed some players that we really don't have right now. Whereas, so it looked, especially like the first time, like I say, where I watched the whole thing, it's kind of looked like, yeah, it was a struggle. There were rare moments where we could hold possession. And then when we did hold possession, actually, I mean, really felt like our biggest danger is, like our throw-ins and set pieces and stuff like that. And that could be something to build on, and kind of like I say, all you're after right now is points and building blocks to kind of go towards the future. You just got up onto this league, which shows how big that win was last week. Matt says, how long is Robertson out for? From what I have read, he would not be playing for Brighton, but that was more like playing it safe, getting him some more practice time. So take that as you will, unless, something happens and he feels a knock or something like that in practice. It sounds like he will be ready for the Rangers game. And that could be, I mean, this is going to be a month, Mateusz, that it feels like we will have to have rotation, whether Klopp likes it or not. And especially with how fragile our midfield is. So this is going to be a true test of how deep this team is. So I
Yeah.
guess the question becomes, with the Champions League games coming up against Rangers, do you roll the dice and rotate mostly on those games, hoping you should be enough to handle the Rangers? But knowing it's the Champions League and you lost the first game, then you kind of make a really tough win out of it to get 3 points. It's not like
Yeah.
it's a guaranteed group either. So where do you
Right.
stand on that?
Right. I think if the team would have lost to Ajax, I think it'd be much different. I think you'd have to go into the game with Rangers full strength because you have to get 3 points out of that game, already losing to Napoli and Ajax. So I think there can be some rotation. With Klopp, we know there's never going to be a full 7-8 guy rotation. It's only going to be 2 or 3 pieces, unless it's even a couple years ago when we saw the group was clinched and we're playing midfield, and Klopp was still bringing out the strongest 11, and that's when Jota got hurt, and he was out for a few months. And it's just one of those things where that's where you can get so stubborn, is that even in those games where it really doesn't matter, you have the group clinched, that you don't see that rotation. So from a standpoint of that, I don't expect much rotation, even if it is Rangers. Would I like to see some extra rotation? Of course. But do we also have dogs awake? Do we also have the depth?
He seemed irate this morning.
Yeah. So hey.
Like throwing shit around. It's like, God damn it, you woke me up.
Spoiled creatures.
Yeah, you should see these guys. And I think that's the thing. It's going to be interesting in this one because I feel like, especially the first game, it is at Anfield, so you can afford the rotation and hopefully get Anfield behind you and win that game. And if Napoli beats Ajax, it's almost like you kind of get separated, right? It's like you and Napoli separating from the rest. And I think maybe perhaps that could be enough to say, okay, we do an even bigger rotation when we go away to Rangers. I think that's why the first leg is going to be pretty interesting, especially with what happens with the Napoli game. I mean, obviously we have to win as well, but that Napoli game is going to be huge because, I mean, we don't care if we're out of the group as first or second or whatever. It doesn't mean a whole lot at the end of the day. So it's just going to be interesting seeing that, but it's just good to have the freaking boys back and kind of like hopefully get back into the groove of like watching these guys and hopefully kind of get back into watching what we expect to watch rather than be shocked with what we're seeing. Any plans for the rest of the day? Are you going to go full sports today to make up for yesterday?
I'm going to try to get some more sports in. I'm going to try and actually make a tea and not just some hot water. That's going to be great. I think the best thing about October is that there are going to be so many games so often that from a fan standpoint, we might not even have enough time to sulk over the last match because the next one is coming up right now. So, it's one of those things where I think even maybe psychologically for some players, even though you have a lot coming at you at once, if you have kind of a tough game here, you have a chance to turn around right away. You don't have to sit with that for a week. You don't have to sit with that for 10 days. With this international break, if going into it was a little bit worse, they would have to sit, 2.5, 3 weeks with that in their head. But now, kind of having all these games so thick and fast, I guess it can work both ways, right? Because you could suffer a defeat and then mentally not get back for it, and then suffer another one and another one and another one. But I'd like to view it from the point of view of you only have so much time to dwell on what just happened. Now, forget about it. Move on. Next game is in 2 days. So, it's one of those things where I think from that point of view, it'll be exciting.
Yeah, I think that's why it's like kind of important to start it out good because you want that momentum. And honestly, the team that kind of has a good run in October I mean, in the league, and it, is going to be really advantageous come after the World Cup. It's almost going to be start with a lead, and then we have a mini league starting basically after January or whatever. But I think that's why it's going to be really important to get a good start against Brighton. I am definitely worried just because of the international break, and like in some ways it's good that these guys did not play games, but at the same time you kind of worry how they're going to start a game and getting back into the pace of things and what happens there. You would think now we're going to see Arthur getting more into the mix. Thiago is back. Hendo is back-ish. I mean, I'm assuming he's back. At least he's practicing, so he should be ready to be coming in. I almost feel like, we're going to see those guys making more last 20 minutes appearances and things like that. And this is where it's going to be key to rotate and get some, like finish off the game, last 20 minute shifts and stuff to these guys and not run them into the ground.
All 5 subs. Yeah, bring on the kids if you've got a comfortable enough advantage, all those things.
Exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see how Klopp manages it, and honestly, how the team performs to be able to enable. I mean, obviously, if you're chasing a game, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
So it's going to be important to see if we put ourselves in good situations and not always freaking concede the first goal and try to chase a game and stuff like that. But interesting October coming right up, Mateusz. Well, thanks a lot for joining us. Go make yourself some tea, throw some leaves in that hot water, and that's all it pretty much takes. Thanks a lot for listening. Join us tonight at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. I'll be joined by Bickler and Galley, and I'll just get Galley going on the national team, and that should be about an hour, I would think, by itself. So it should be an easy show tonight. Take it easy, guys.